to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Our program focuses on business and consumer issues, as well as personal finance topics. Now, anyone who has purchased gas has probably seen an inspection sticker ensuring that the gas pumps are accurate. But are they? Today's guest on The Money Factor is Tom Fitzpatrick, Commissioner of the Albany County Consumer Affairs Office. He can answer that question and many more. Let's join him and get started. Hello, Tom.
Richard, hello, how are you?
Great, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Consumer affairs is on a lot of people's minds when they are feeling that they've not been treated fairly. And it's a broad issue. But you bring a lot of skills to the problem, and from what I've looked at the website and seen, your department does a lot of things that I don't think everyone knows about.
I would tend to agree with you. I think there's been a strong need for consumer advocacy, and Mr. Breslin, our county executive, had seen fit back in 1995 to form the Department of Consumer Affairs, which also encompasses the Division of Weights and Measures within Albany County, and we've been operating as such ever since.
And you also told me something interesting about your background.
Yes, I spent over 23 years with the Albany Police Department. I retired some years ago as a detective sergeant. I worked in a special investigations unit, so it kind of went hand in hand with the job I'm doing now, in that I do have a law enforcement background, and I'm used to dealing with people in stressful situations. I'm used to dealing with victims and so forth, so that experience has come in handy for me.
That's really important, I think. Could we kind of get clear what the goal and what the mission of your department is before we dig into anything?
Sure. The goal and the mission of our department is to protect the consumers as well as businesses within Albany County in a variety of ways. We perform a number of services. We do a number of audits on various commodities and consumer products that are out there to see that the consumer gets a fair shake in the marketplace.
And as I walk around the grocery store, I go to the gas station, I see these little stickers on things. An elevator says inspected.
Yeah.
And I really didn't put weights and measures together before with your department.
Yes.
Could you tell people a little more about how that works?
The Weights and Measures Department. As I said, we do a variety of services through Weights and Measures, aside from consumer affairs, but by and large they're part and parcel of each other. We check gasoline stations for accuracy and the dispensing of gasoline.
And I'd like to just say I think everybody reacts right now very strongly to that with the high price of gasoline.
They do indeed. As the price of gasoline goes up, my phone rings more.
Okay.
And people are ever conscious of what they're getting at the pump, the price they're paying, and if they think that they're being taken advantage of, my phone rings, and we investigate each and every complaint that is received through the department.
I've heard that when the temperature goes up, gasoline expands, and when it gets cold, is that an issue or is that more of a red herring?
I would take it to be a red herring. It's something that people have been aware of for years and years. It's a basic law of physics. Back in the 1920s, there were people who said that something needed to be done about that to ensure that the consumer isn't being taken advantage of. However, the temperature variability is taken into account with the tolerances that are allowed at the gas pump when we do actually perform a test. So in other words, if the gasoline is of a higher temperature, providing that the pump is operating properly, you'll still be getting the gasoline that is required by law within tolerance.
Now, do you deal with fraud as well as educational issues?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I don't have to tell anyone that identity theft is a major issue right now. Millions of people in the United States alone fall victim to it every year. The people who perpetrate these crimes are very clever, they're very sly, they're fast talking, and and they tend to take advantage of people, and they're very good at securing personal information. Our department conducts consumer education programs, one of which is the prevention of identity theft. Another one is telemarketing scams, and we go out into the community for any civic group that requests it and put on these programs for them just to make folks aware of ways that they can protect themselves.
That's really good. Now, do you find that people really need a lot of help figuring out if they've been a victim of fraud, or is it more the victim is usually right and they have been a victim of fraud?
If I'm to understand that correctly, some people may realize that they have become a victim sooner than others. It all depends on the amount or number of credit cards that they have, how well they keep track of their credit card bills, if they are receiving bills for things that they have never purchased and so forth. That's a pretty good indicator. We've had other folks who have been victims of identity theft for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And not be aware of it. And of course, the longer you're a victim of that type of crime, the more difficult it is to clean up the situation and get you back
That's a little
to normal.
shocking. How can somebody be victimized for 2 years? What kind of things would happen that they wouldn't know about?
There could be credit cards opened up in their name, and they choose to ignore the bills, or perhaps they don't even realize that they are bills until a collection agency contacts them.
Okay.
And that's another whole story.
So that could go
too.
months.
It could go months. And then there are cases too, which are occurring more and more, where collection agencies are contacting people who aren't really the object of the debt and insist that they are the object of the debt. And there are rules and regulations under the Fair Credit Reporting Act that safeguard against that, but still these types of problems can be lengthy and very very stressful to a person.
Now, what should a person do? Should they call your office? Should they call the police department?
If
who
they
would I
feel
call
they have
when
been,
yes.
if they feel they've been a victim of identity theft, one of the first things they should do is to contact all 3 of the national credit reporting agencies.
Now, if they don't know how to do that.
If they don't, well, if they have any questions at all, and they're an Albany County resident, our office is, free to contact. In most cases, they get to speak to someone immediately. If not, they get a return call in a very short period of time, and we'll either work on the case here if it's of a local nature, or we'll refer them to another agency that they can contact and step by step go through things that they can do to clear up the issue.
So let me make sure I got that straight, because I think it's really important. Timing is probably important when you discover that something is wrong in your wallet, it's missing, or something's happened.
Yes.
The first thing they should do, and it would be what you would tell them, is to contact those credit agencies.
That's right. Well, if it's the case of a lost wallet, lost purse, stolen wallet, stolen purse, the first thing they should do is contact the police.
Okay.
And make a report, because most of these cases, the debtor will want to show that the person has made a diligent effort to report the crime in the first place. The next step would be to contact all 3 of the credit reporting agencies and notify them to put a flag on their credit report, so that should anyone attempt to apply for credit under that name, that they will be personally notified before the credit is okayed.
Okay.
And they will do that. They will call you and say, have you taken out an application for a Visa card or whatever? And the response would be, no, I haven't, and then they won't authorize it. But if that isn't done, the person could proceed and generate any number of credit cards with their information.
And then once they've done that, the police department, the credit agencies, I would think you would want some advice of all the things that you might not have thought of.
Yeah, you should also notify the Social Security Administration.
Oh.
They have a fraud number, which is available, and we make all this information available to the people when we do these seminars. I give them handouts with all the phone numbers and so forth, so that they can make it as quick and easy as possible to notify these places. And I tell everyone that one of the first things they should do is take the contents of their wallet, Social Security card, credit cards, front and back, make photocopies of them, and then keep them in a safe place. Should this happen, they will have those numbers available, and they can call the credit card companies. They'll have everything right there at their fingertips to make it more quick.
That sounds like awfully good advice that I should follow as well. I haven't done that.
We all should. I think the trick, though, is to remembering what safe place we put photocopies in.
I think that's an interesting comment, because that's the first thing that went through my mind when I was thinking I haven't done it. I was thinking, where would I put it? Right. I'm not going to tell everybody where I put things here, but...
That's right. That's right. Someplace that you will remember where it is,
right,
should that occur to you.
Right. Now, what is going on today? There are things that we can almost just kind of fall back on and say, we don't have to think about it very much. You know, we're so used to going to a grocery store, we see a sign, we see a price, we pretty much believe that that price is correct and we're not going to be cheated at the checkout. Now maybe we should be checking, but a lot of our society is safer because of weights and measures and things like that.
That's right. That's right. We have seen in states where they don't have a lot of weights and measures enforcement that there'll be more of a prevalence of short weight products in those states than there are, let's say, in New York State, which has a very good program. And so the manufacturers, I'm not going to say that they will intentionally take advantage of things, but we have noticed that seems to be the case with certain things.
And that can happen.
Yes. Yes.
So I guess we can be happy that there are a lot of things being done to protect us. What areas today are hot in terms of things going on? You mentioned identity theft, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other areas where you're getting a lot of calls, or this is a new thing?
Well, just back to the identity theft thing for a minute. Anybody who operates a computer has probably at one time or another seen an email from some loan institution or from some bank that ostensibly is the bank or place that they are doing business with, when in fact it's a website that resembles it very closely but is not. And they'll make an inquiry saying that your information has been lost, or they're concerned about a particular problem, and would you please refurnish the information to them at that time. And I caution anyone to just refrain from doing that. Any reputable, legitimate loan institution or bank would never request that someone furnish that information either over the telephone or over the internet.
And I wonder, you may feel, well, gee, shouldn't people know that by now? Because as we've been on the computer, we've seen that time and time again. I get things from banks that I don't even know exist. You'll get Chase, you'll get KeyBank, you'll get all the ones that you know exist, many of which I don't use, but some I've never even heard of. So how could they be asking me to verify my account number? Even though it seems like people shouldn't need to know that, how many people actually are being a victim of this today?
I think it goes back to what you just said, that you have received numerous ones from banks and so forth who you've never done business with, so you know that they wouldn't be requesting that information. So these criminals use like a shotgun approach. So they will send out that same email to 40,000 people, 39,000 of whom don't do business with the bank and will ignore it, but 1,000 do business with the bank, and out of that maybe 10% of them might actually respond and give up the information. So if they even get 10 or 100 people out of 40,000 people to give up that information, and they can make you a victim, then it's worthwhile to them to do it.
And I guess we should mention, we do computer classes at the library, and so we train people who haven't used computers very much before. So they get exposed to it for the first time.
Yes.
And then plus, it seems that the bad guys keep evolving their strategies and try to tweak things until it really looks tempting even for you and I.
That's right. They certainly do. They try to make, it's a deal that seems too good to be true. And my advice to anyone is, if that's the case, it probably isn't true. So nothing is free.
Right. There are a lot of big things that people do, and a house is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned before the show about a roofer, $2,000 job, maybe they don't show up. And what does somebody do, especially an older person who can't run around and climb up on the roof and isn't just having it done because they don't have time. They don't know anything about a roof. And there are a lot of things I don't know anything about. If I needed a new furnace, I wouldn't know it except that it didn't work.
Certainly, certainly. My advice is along those lines is, first of all, dealing with any home improvement contractor, and we do a seminar on dealing with home improvement contractors, and by and large, most of them are honest and do a good job. But like with any other industry, there are lots of them out there, and some of them are not reputable. So the first thing I tell people is to get a contract. And we go into detail about what should be contained in a home improvement contract to better ensure that the consumer is not taken advantage of, to get several estimates, to deal with somebody, let's say, out of the yellow pages, rather than somebody that's driving by your house and stops in and says, you know, your chimney needs, it looks like it needs to be pointed up, I can do it for $100. Well, you don't know, as you just said, whether the chimney actually needs to be pointed up, or even if it does, are they going to do it properly, or are they going to do it at all? So try to deal with somebody who's reputable. Get references. What I tell a lot of folks is, if you live in a suburban area like Colonie, and you are thinking of, let's say, having a roof done, as you're driving along, you're going to see roofing companies working on projects. And I don't think most people would mind if you called them or stopped in and just said, I noticed that you had your roof done last week. Were you satisfied with the job? You know, and so forth. Make an inquiry and go from there with it. You know, if the people are satisfied with the job, well, that's a plus for that contractor.
That's
on the other hand, they may say, no, I wasn't. And then you would know that that is someone to steer clear from.
That sounds like a good idea. I've seen signs where the contractor or the company will leave a sign in a yard, and whether it's a landscaper or a driveway specialist or a roofer, and I just wonder, it's almost like free advertising.
Yeah.
Now, should I think that if they left it there on purpose, they wanted me to see it and not go to that house, or would that still be a good house to knock on the door and ask if they're satisfied?
Oh, I think it would definitely be a good house to knock on the door. You know, I can't say it's a plus or a minus that they leave that on the lawn. I would say that it's probably a more reputable company who would be willing to publicly acknowledge that they did this job.
Okay.
You know, if it looks very nice, you know, they put the sign up there, but gee, they did a nice job. You know, maybe I'll call them. But get, like I said, at least 3 estimates and go from there. The cheapest estimate isn't always the best one, and you know, folks want to shop around, and you know, as you bring up a roof, nobody plans on replacing a roof. It's one of those things that comes out of the clouds, so to speak, and then we have to hurry up and have it done. So it's not something that, you know, we look forward to having done.
Understood. Right. Let's see. Scams. Senior citizens. What should an older person do who needs something done with the house? Maybe they don't. Should they ask a relative? Should they call themselves?
Yes, they could ask a relative if they're a senior. They can do what I just described, check for references and so forth. I think one of the most important things along those lines when you mention a scam is, was it the customer or the consumer who contacted the contractor, or was it the other way around?
Okay.
We've all heard of, particularly in the summer months, where fellows will come up and knock on your door and say, gee, we'll seal your driveway for $50. We had some leftover supplies from the job down the road, and just because we're in the neighborhood and we have it left over, we'll do it for $50.
Right.
And either you're going to get an inferior job, or the stuff's going to wash away after a couple of storms and so forth. So usually it should be a case where the consumer contacts the contractor rather than the other way around.
Now, would it be okay, I mean, maybe okay is a relative term, that somebody in doubt calls your office?
They certainly can. Albany County has, approximately 300,000 residents. So the complaints we do get about specific businesses may not be on a continual basis, like XYZ contracting. I might get a complaint or two over 2 years about them. You know, well, what about the rest of the jobs they did and so forth? So there aren't too many where I get that are what would be known as a habitual offender along those lines. So they're better off contacting the Better Business Bureau, and there's a couple of ways they can do that. They have a toll-free number, but they do charge a fee for giving you the information, and they charge that to your credit card. It's a nominal fee, but nonetheless. Or they can go online and go to Better Business Bureau and get the information for free. The Better Business Bureau has participants, members, and so forth, and the members, report, and customers and so forth report. So they have a data bank or base on that. But a lot of companies are not members. And if you were to contact the Better Business Bureau and make an inquiry about XYZ contracting, and I hope there really isn't an XYZ contracting, but
ABC probably.
Okay, well, the Better Business Bureau may not have information on that particular company.
I've had that happen.
Right, and it's not to say that they haven't had complaints. There hasn't been complaints about that company. They just haven't been reported to the Better Business Bureau. On the other hand, if they are listed there, it'll tell you the number of complaints that have been received over a period of time, let's say 2 years. They'll let you know what the basic nature of the complaints were. They'll let you know if the complaints were resolved or unresolved, and whether they felt that the company dealt in good faith in trying to resolve the complaint. Not all complaints are, against the business. I mean, or are truthfully against the business. Some people are just dissatisfied and make a complaint about a perfectly legitimate and reputable business. So we take a look at how they resolve the complaints. If they make an attempt, to resolve it in good faith, and we feel that they have, then that is the end of the complaint.
I want to go back and ask a follow-up question. It kind of slipped my mind. The contract.
Yes.
I tend to be a bit of an impulsive person, and it's hard for me sometimes to tell people I want a contract. I feel like, well, maybe I'm acting like I don't trust them, or they seem to know what they're doing. But it seems that would be the really intelligent thing to do. And then you mentioned you could help them find out what should be in that contract.
That's correct.
Not just, we'll do something for $1,200.
That's correct. In the case of a home improvement contract, a list of the supplies to be used, and you can be as specific as you want with that. An approximate start date and an approximate finish date.
Now, if you ask the company
important
for all these things,
yes,
they should be prepared to put those in.
They should be. If they're a reputable company, they shouldn't have any difficulty in writing up a contract. They are not complicated, as other contracts may be. A home improvement contract can be pretty basic, but it should have a start date, a finish date, a list of supplies, cost of supplies, tentative cost of labor, and what I always tell folks there too is to put what's called a broom clause at the conclusion of the contract to make sure that they clean up the debris and so forth that they have left as a result of their work, because that seems to be a complaint, that they came and they did this, but they left all this junk in my garage. And let's face it, it's difficult to get rid of those types of things today.
Now, some contracts, I know from some past experience, are time and materials.
Mm-hmm.
Some contracts are, I'll do this for.
Yes.
Could you give any advice about when one should exist and when the other one should exist?
No, not really. It would depend on the job itself. If it's a very simple job, they're probably not going to break it down into hours and so forth. If it's a job where they're going to need drywall and lumber or windows, anything like that, you should get the price of the windows on there, on the contract, the type of window and so forth, and be specific about it so that substitutes aren't made while the job is being done.
I guess what I would worry about is that the job could eternalize, and that this could take a long time.
Yes.
And they would have a reason to take a long time.
Yes, and that is a problem, and I think anybody who's had any work, any remodeling work done in their home, a kitchen, a bathroom, or whatever, would agree that as the job progresses, we say, gee, that looks really nice, but maybe we should have that cabinet redone too, and just say, I'd like the cabinet replaced. Well, it's not in the original contract. So this kind of leaves the door open for charges along those lines, and the more you add on to things without it being contained in the contract, the more you're leaving yourself open to paying a more exorbitant fee than you probably would have.
And I guess, to be fair, if you're dealing with a small artisan type contractor, and you asked him to put small diamond tiles that you hadn't specified before into a wall that was 12 by 12, he might not necessarily point out to you that this is going to add maybe 30 or 40 or 50 or double the price.
That's correct. So it's incumbent on the customer, the consumer, to make inquiries and to ask questions. And my feeling on it is if the contractor is unwilling to deal with the consumer along those lines, then find somebody else to do the job.
We're getting kind of close to the end. I wondered if there's something that we haven't dealt with that you feel we really should have.
I'd like to also point out that we do what's called commodities inspections. I think I had mentioned this at the beginning.
Right.
With the packaged products. And we do that routinely. We go into the markets and we take products and we separate for the tear weight, which is the package, the actual packaging weight from the contents of that, and determine whether the consumer is getting, if it says it's 16 ounces, well, if the package comes back at 15 ounces, then that's a violation. And we do levy fines for those types of things. Albany County also has 2 local laws which I'm responsible for. One is local law number 1, which pertains to item pricing, which means that every item will have a sticker on it, which will correspond with the shelf price. This is just so the consumer can pick that object up and see exactly what it is. And when it goes through the scanner at the checkout counter, it had better correspond with what's on there, because that's a violation too.
I've been to stores where it seems to be an oversight. It's just an oversight that they didn't put a price on something. Oh, there's no price on that.
Yeah, yeah. There are tolerances with that too. We usually want 90% compliance with that. So if there's 10 items on the shelf, 9 of them should have the sticker. We'll allow them 1 along those lines that aren't marked.
And you're talking about different items, not just 9 boxes of cereal marked and 1 not, but if you had cereal and none of this brand was marked,
that's right,
but you had 9 others, that wouldn't be outside the tolerance.
That would be a violation.
That would be a violation?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we fine them for that as well.
Perhaps one more question, bait and switch. I need a new mattress. Look in the paper. $200. You go. It's 2x4, suitable for a dog.
Yeah, that's unfortunately.
What do you do?
Yeah, that's something that has been around for a long time. I do get complaints on it. More often than not, whether it be true or not, the business will say that they were out of stock on that particular item, and therefore are selling this item in its place. Or you'll see a picture in a flyer of a nice table, and it looks very nice, everything for wonderful price, and you go there and it doesn't look like it does at all in the picture. And these cases are difficult to prove because they are.
So I guess you just advise, turn around and go away?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
I want to thank you very much for being a guest on our show.
Well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to come here today.
Thank you very much, and wanted to welcome our viewers to the next show, and hope you have a great week. Thank you.